all of you that joined us earlier. Yeah. I hope you guys that joined us earlier had a lot of fun. Our first afternoon event. Hi, Ed. Hi, Jeff. We had a bunch of fun earlier, man. Like, I don't know. I just love looking at pretty rocks, and that event is perfect to get a little fix for that. Um, Zeke is the invisible man tonight. He might turn that corner in a second, but oh, see, speak of the devil. But we're doing photography tonight. Well, Zeke is really gonna be taking lead on that, but it's going to be so much fun. And he's been wicked excited to do this. So he's setting up his little photography table and he's all giddy and excited. And he's going to be like, "How y'all doing?"
Oh Lord, Jordan. Don't even need me anymore. Jordan can do both parts.
I can. Very well. I'm
I don't
sure
know what
he
we're
has,
blaming Jordan
Daniel.
for, but it sounds about right.
Girl, please. Spare
Oh,
me.
that's so funny. Did y'all have fun earlier? It was awesome to do a little afternoon show before the live event. And no. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. I know a double header. That's fun. Oh, Ed, you crack me up. You guys are so funny.
Mm.
Awesome. Well, by no means am I a good photographer, but I do have some tips and suggestions that will hopefully help y'all out in doing some photography. And well, it's also an excuse to go buy some cool gadgets. So because photography is fun, anytime there's an excuse to go get more stuff, I've always been fascinated with photography. My parents collected cameras, and so they had tons of antique cameras growing up. So I was always very fascinated about it. I remember getting so excited, those little disposable cameras that you'd wind up. I remember using tons of those as a kid. I loved them to death. And so I've always had a somewhat of a fascination. But more recently, I've started actually learning a little bit more about it. And I got like a professional camera. I've been playing with that. Although this is a good reminder, I forgot that this was tonight. So it's a good reminder that I need to get it back out and start playing with it again. Hey,
Hey,
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Is it a an RT6 or a 12, Daniel? All right. Well, are we ready to get started? Oh, we got a good amount of people in the room. The three or the six? Ed. All right. Well, I guess we're not ready to get started. Let's sit here till
Oh,
Ed gives us permission.
he's going to be like,
You,
"Fine, fine. Go ahead." Can't stand to
you
look
guys
at
are
Zeke
so
that
funny.
long. I'm
All
just
right.
kidding.
Well, I just realized I actually need a another tripod. Well, looking at the wrong screen. All right. You guys see the table here?
Yes.
This now? Perfect. All right. So, what I would recommend if you are just doing some photography to start out and you're gonna maybe you're just taking some pictures of some rocks and maybe you're taking some pictures, for the contest, things like that. I would not go nuts getting camera gear. I would get the absolute bare minimum. If I was starting over and I just needed to start photography, the first thing I would get is well, I shouldn't say the first thing, one of the first things. And everything I'm going to suggest in the next few minutes, you can get all of this for under $100. You can spend many, many thousands as well, but you can get away with a setup for under $100 just getting on Amazon. I would get a light box, one of these little portable ones that you can set up, take down. You can put it on the dining room table, take some pictures, tear it down. Um, you can get these for very, very cheap on Amazon. You can get very, very expensive ones. You really don't need an expensive one. I have used ones that cost thousands, and I've used ones that cost $30. And for most people that never know the difference. And certainly, picture wise, the picture is all that really matters in the end. So get as expensive as you want to play with, but you can get away with something like this for like $30. One of these portable light boxes for doing products. The other thing you're going to want is a tripod. Now, this is another thing where people can go really crazy. Like this one here that I have my Sony camera on was like 300, $350, something like that. And it's a very nice tripod. It's lightweight. It's considered the best travel tripod. You absolutely do not need that. This was like $15 on an Amazon deal, and it um, works just as good for what we're going to do today. Right now, I have a little light on here, but just a basic tripod. um, this is going to help you stay steady and help you get nicer pictures. And by the way, Shine, who is a probably a better photographer than I am, put together a list of things, little pro tips. If we could share San's list, that would be awesome. And then the next thing that I would absolutely get, and again, this is a very expensive version. You can get a light like this for like 20, $30 on Amazon. This one I think was like 150 or something like that. But basically, the only thing that's special about this light is that it's got an adjustable color tone. So you can turn it so it's very yellow, or you can turn it up so that it's very, very like blue white. Most of the time where I have this set is about 4800 because that's about daylight. And the other nice thing about this one is you can turn the brightness up and down. Now you can get a cheap light that is this light does a lot of other things, but that's all you really need. And so yeah, just a little LED light, nothing super fancy. Like literally you could get a decent setup if you're assuming you already got like a phone. You could get a decent setup for under $100, get all the stuff that you're gonna need. So I have that little light. We also have this light. This is basically the same thing, but this one is again a very expensive version, much bigger. I use this one because I like over the top of the what I'm working on, and it floods the area really well. You absolutely do not need something like that unless you just need an excuse to tell your spouse you want to go buy one. So there's, there's the fun in that. And then the other things that I use a lot actually is just nature. Like I'd say half the photos you guys see where I take like a decent looking photo is literally just me outside with the rocks, like usually like cabs or agates or something. And I just find a nice space out in the warehouse to take a picture. So I shot a little video to show you guys two of the areas I really use a lot in the around the warehouse. And I took some completely unedited photos, just some iPhone quick snaps to show you guys the results of using those spaces. So if we could start that first video and then show those first few pictures, that would be wonderful. Just some of the pictures I took earlier, and this was not a very sunny day either. And then I took a video out in the where I do these so you guys can kind of see what I'm looking for when I'm looking at spots like this. But you can see since oh, do you have the video, Marvin? You see, like that's no editing. There's literally just going outside, taking a couple quick pictures. All I did there was make sure it's in focus and pick a nice spot for the picture. And really, for most people, taking a picture, you want something basic like an iPhone. That's what's so great about a phone like that is it's really easy to get a good picture. Well, let's see. I think iPhone actually just did an update, but literally I'll just take it and then there's actually a portrait mode which you can adjust the blur, the background blur. Having a little background blur on your piece will add a lot. But most of the pictures I just take in the standard mode. And you can also do, I just put the little top on here. You see it uses just a little tripod like this. Um, to keep it stable so while you're taking your shot. I do a lot of the background blur and a lot of the background removal and editing. Like I use Lightroom, and actually, well, Marvin does that. I wonder if I can screen share. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes,
All
you
right,
can.
so this is a picture of the copper chrysocolla and the sphere that I did, and you can see on the left here is a just a standard snap of the iPhone picture. And you got this dusty background that's not very black. I mean, that's a nice black piece of felt, but it doesn't show very black. And then you got a little bit of junk, like the stand and stuff in the top of the picture here. So this looks a lot less attractive than having over here, where all I did on this picture is remove the background. And there's tons of software that can easily do this. Lightroom just happens to be the one that I'm using, but you can do this for free on Canva, and there's tons of them, endless amounts of software that can do this. But all I did for this picture is just remove the background, and you can see how much of a difference that makes, and how much the color pops, and how vibrant the sphere looks. It is really quite incredible what the difference will do. The other thing, if you have software like this that you can do, is photo stack. And again, this is like going like way deep, far beyond what I should be teaching. But you can photo stack where you get the depth of like a sphere like this and get really good detail, because you can see there's actually a little bit of blurring around the edge here. And that's because it's not in focus on the entire surface. So if you photo stack, you can get it in detail all the way around. But this picture overall looks pretty good for just walking over, taking a quick picture with an iPhone, and then removing the background. You see absolutely nothing fancy done in this. And there's lots of videos, so whatever software you use, just watch the video on how to remove the background, and there's a million YouTube videos on how to do that. But I wanted to show you guys that because it's a easy thing to do to change the aesthetics.
I wanted to shoot you guys a little video because we can't do this part live. One of the spaces that I use a lot for doing photography because it's such a aesthetically pleasing location. Now it's kind of a dim day today, so today is not a day I would normally use for photography. But a lot of the cabochon photos, I actually use this spot right here, which doesn't look great if you just look at this. But where it does look great is if I take and put a cabochon on the moss there and then do a close-up picture. And what you can see is cropped out. So you got just a little bit of moss with maybe a little bit of the stone in the background. And we can share some of the pictures of cabochons I took for you guys. But even with this kind of overcast day, the colors show up so great out here naturally. And what's great about that is if you're going to sell something like this or do a competition, you don't have to worry about there being over contrast or color adjustments because it's already such a nice color out in the sun. Now with something like this one, it looks a little, it's a little bit more green, so it doesn't pop as well on this surface. So I may come over here and do a picture on this kind of a surface where the colors are going to show up a little bit better. Now you can see one of the problems here is that all the reflection. So sometimes I'll use like a piece of paper and I'll hold it up so that you can see if I just put my hand there and move down a little bit, it gets rid of a lot of that. So I'll use a piece of paper sometimes, which also acts as a light diffuser to get a nice picture that way. Now, if you notice, when I covered this up, I didn't cover up the whole stone. I left this little edge with a little bit of the light reflection on there. And that does two things. It shows that the stone is domed. It also shows that it's got a really good polish. So I like that a lot. Let's see. Now, if we come over here, one of my other favorite places to take pictures. And you may not have a river running through your building to do this, but just walk around and look. I bet you can find some beautiful spots to do it. Now, one of the other things I'll do is come sit right here with my feet hanging over the edge of the water. And then I can rest my arms on this pole here. And it's in video mode, so it doesn't look as good for a picture. But what I can do is I can take pictures holding the stones, overlooking the water. And that gives a nice background where you get this nature water look behind you. Oh man, so the sun just came out. A little bit of overcast. It rained a little bit, so everything's nice and luscious. So I'll actually take a couple pictures of these cabs right now, and we'll share those after this video. And I'll go take a video of the other spot that I really like to use in the warehouse.
Awesome. You want to share those pictures again? Now that we just shot the video, so you can see the moss area that I used. We did this. This one actually came out better than I thought it would. But what's the other thing to notice? What's nice about this? I think Jeffrey said it earlier before the harsh light is that the way these are tilted up, they're not like having really harsh direct sunlight on them, and so they look really good and it is nice, nicely saturated. And there's no editing done to these pictures. So this is just a snap of the iPhone. This one looks a little compressed. Let's see now. So I don't actually do any editing on 90% of the stuff that you guys see. Like this picture right here, zero editing. This is, I went outside, put it in the moss, took a picture with my phone, made sure I had good lighting on it. Wipe off your lens, very steady, take the picture. But there was nothing done to this picture like nothing changed other than just snapping the picture. I didn't adjust any settings. I just took a really clean picture. Where I see a lot of people struggle, even with just taking a picture like this, is that it tends to be a little shaky, a little too blurred, and or the lens has got smudges on it. And Kate brings up the next point that I was going to talk about. If you are going to sell the stone, what I would say is if you do any editing, which I would try to avoid, is that if you look at your picture and then you look at the stone and you ask yourself, would I be happy if I got this rock after looking at that picture? Are you going to be happy? If you look at the picture and go, wow, that's so much better than the stone in real life, then your picture is too over edited. The only times I edit photos when selling is to do stuff like remove the background, where I'm not changing the color of the stone, or I'm not changing how the stone appears. I'm just putting it on a clean background so there's no distractions and you're focused on the stone. Or to remove like glare. If you noticed on that copper chrysocolla sphere I had, it had some glare. And then the other thing I'll do is if the picture looks like if I have too much light and it looks too off, I will hold the stone up and I will adjust the color to match what I see with my eye on the stone. But I really don't like adjusting the color at all, and I only do it when it's absolutely necessary. I'll give you an example. The blue chalcedony, for instance, sometimes will look so washed out on camera that it looks not blue at all. And so sometimes I would adjust that a little bit so it matches what I see in real life. But I really try not to do anything to the photos because, if you're selling it, people are going to be unhappy if the photo looks a lot better than the stone does. And that's a good point too, Robert. And you can also get little tools to help you white balance. Yeah, I really, for most people, your best bet is to take a photo like this out in the sunlight in some natural environment and don't edit it at all. Just leave it the way it is. Because this may not be world-class photography right here that we're looking at, but this does look really good. The one thing I would do if I was really going to clean up these photos is I would have taken a pair of tweezers with me and picked out all the little junk out of the moss, like the little twigs and seeds and stuff. And so the moss looked really clean. But that's it. I wouldn't do anything else to these pictures because these look like the stones do. And it is beautiful. It looks nice. But that's a question. Sorry, I was just reading the comments. But that is a question you should always ask yourself when you're taking photography, when you're going to do like the competition. or when you're gonna do like if you're gonna sell the rocks, if you were to buy that stone from only seeing this picture and you're holding the stone in your hand and you look at the stone in your hand and go, would I be happy if I saw this picture, bought it, and then received this? Like, am I happy? Or if you honestly go, well, that picture looks a little bit better than the stone, you need to dial it down. And sometimes I'll actually, in editing, turn the saturation down. Like this cab right here, if I was gonna post this online for sale, I would actually turn down the saturation just a little bit so it wasn't quite as vibrant. Because though this is an excellent picture, to my eye, the cab isn't quite as vivid red. And so I actually think this picture is better than the cab in this particular case. And so I would turn the saturation down, not up on this. Because what I really want is when people see the photo to go and get the stone, I want them to go, wow, this is better than I thought it was gonna be. That's a much better feeling than "Eh, it's not quite as good as the photo." Word faster, that's funny, Kate. But you don't even need moss. Grass works really good. Some of the other things that work really good are, well, actually, you want to play the next video? That is another thing to consider is, it's not a bad idea to check photos on multiple screens or make sure that your screen is color corrected.
All right, I'm here on the other side of the warehouse now. This is the same river, but this is one of the other spots I really like to do pictures. You see, you get this old looking wood fence, and sometimes I'll use the little plants on the ground for background. But I really like to, oh, it's this one right here. I really like to take stuff and lean it up against the wood. Now, normally I do this later in the day because you see the sun is coming in at an angle like this right now, which is a terrible angle for doing photography right here. If you can wait until the sun is a little bit more behind you, because it'll kind of go over that direction. So if you wait till it's over behind me, then these pictures look a lot better. But having this wood background, this old rustic looking wood, looks really good. Even the worn concrete of this post looks pretty decent. And if you're doing something bigger, then what you wind up with is this river and shrub background. So another really good spot to take pictures.
And do you have the pictures that I took right there on the post? I did a couple there as well. But it actually worked out really good is that little U shape in the steel part of that post was the perfect spot to hold a cab up, like you can see right here. Now, looking at this picture on the screen, if you notice the biggest flaw with this picture, if you look on the edge, oh, let's see, actually, can I annotate? Yes. If you look right here, is more in focus than the center of the cab. And so right here, the focal point needs to be adjusted to the center of the cab here because I'm seeing too much detail on the edge of this metal and not enough detail on the stone. You can see that other picture I did, the detail was much better. And so this one, all you need to do is adjust the um, all if you're using a phone like I was, all you would do is just touch the screen right in the center of the cab there, and it would adjust your focal point. If you're using a camera, you're going to adjust the lens to change the focal point. But if you look, there's too much detail on the metal there and not enough detail in the cab. Although this is still an okay photo. But the other thing that's really good about this photo, if you guys notice, is that the way it's sitting up on the wood here, it's not actually resting against the wood. It's only resting on this bottom third, and it allows the sunlight to come through the stone. So this one, you can actually see how translucent this agate is, which is really cool. I liked this photo a lot when I was doing this. I love that, Robert. And so you can see this is another one where I ended up with too much exposure on the concrete and not enough on the cab. So the cab looks dark and the concrete looks too bright in the wood. This is again, though, could have easily been fixed on an iPhone just by touching the center of the cab. It's always a good idea if you're standing out in the sun taking pictures to go inside and look at them on a different screen because when I took those pictures, they looked a lot better when I was like squinting out in the sun. But you can see now that you're looking on here, this picture could be a lot better. This one right here is one that if I was going to edit this picture, I would um, go into Lightroom and adjust the background brightness down so that the cab was a little bit brighter. And then I'd take the subject brightness up a little bit and turn the saturation down so it's not quite as vivid red because it is a good red, but to me, this still looks like the wrong shade of red. And that's what I would do on this one if I was going to edit it. Is that helpful for you guys? Good, awesome. Hopefully this helps. Now you can see this one is another one where the background is too bright and the stone is too dark. And so while this looked good while I was taking the picture, this is a terrible photo. This is a photo that if we were looking at the competition, people would be going, "Oh, I don't know about that one." Because do you have the other picture one of this, Marvin? The one where this one's on the moss? Yeah, look how much better that same cab is just on a different surface with the saturation or the exposure adjusted a little bit. Like this has a much better chance of winning a competition. It looks a lot more like the actual stone than that other picture does. Which actually surprises me. On this one, I would have thought the green background would have thrown the green blue with the stone off, but it actually looks really good right here. One thing you can do is use a diffuser, Thomas. Um, like that's why I have this light above the station here, is it has a big diffuser in it, and I turn the brightness way up because then it's easier to adjust. But having a couple of those little LEDs also helps. Like sometimes if I'm doing a sphere, because I have all the light coming down right here, I'll take one of these little lights and I'll set it up in front of the stone like that. And so that way it's shining on front of it. You just got to make sure it's of enough of an angle off that you're not getting reflection on the face of your stone. And I also wanted to talk about another thing here. If you do not have a great outdoor space, or maybe you're in the city or an apartment that you do not have somewhere to go out, you can do things like this. This is a nice little laguna right here. And you can see it would just look great on this $10 plant, or how much was this? I'm sorry, $20 plant from Target. Now, with this, the only thing that I would say or suggest heavily is because if you get detail on this, you can see it's a cheap plastic plant. However, if you make sure that your focus is right in the center of the agate here, and then you put a little bit of a background blur, you won't even be able to tell that this is a plastic plant. So that's one that if you had one of these cheap light boxes, you could set up, take a nice picture of this agate, and it would look really good. Depth of field, thank you. Well, see, if you add well, here, let's just take a picture. See what you guys think. So on one like this, I just come in, and then this one on an iPhone, you can go to portrait. Let's see. Zoom in a little bit. Oh, I know they just changed this so that you could adjust the f-stop on the phone here. Of course, they update it. No. Oh, of course, iPhone adjust or changed their f-stop on there. But what I would do is change so you have a lot of background blur on this. So this would all look blurry. You would see a little bit of the green in the background here, but you would not see the detail of all that plant. You would only want the detail of the stone. And so that would actually look really good set up like there. One of the other things that I do a lot is use stones that you have. Of course, you guys all have some awesome rocks. So if you took a piece of like this petrified wood and sat it there, you could set stones up on it and get that really cool wood look, and it would look really good. Because you can imagine you take a picture, you're going to crop it so that you lose the light box background. You're going to get just the petrified wood here, and that's going to look really good sitting on the stone like that. So you can look around and see what nice backgrounds you have laying around already to do that with. One of the other ones was this piece of grape agate that I was like, man, some of this grape agate would make an awesome place to set a stone. Now you can see I got too much white light hitting that stone because it's so white. It is throwing the camera for a loop. So I would turn the brightness down on the lights a little bit right there. But then you crop this so that you're just getting the grape agate as your background, and that will also look really cool on that cabochon. One of the other fun things that I wanted to suggest, because this looks really good when you do this with a reflective surface. Like if you guys saw that picture I did of the bumblebee on the table, we have a glossy wood table in the office, and so I got the camera down really low to the stone and did a picture. So sometimes I'll take something like this where it's a polished surface and you want to get down low. And again, you want to blur this background so that you're not seeing the background. But that way you can use the reflective surface leading up to the stone. And that makes really cool pictures as well. So, but a lot of this you can change in the software of adjusting. And those are things that are okay to adjust. Things like um, background blur, cropping out the photo. This would be a great one to crop out. Like if I was going to do this one, I'd blur all the background right there so you're not really focused on the light box. And then you would get this nice ocean jasper leading up to that bumblebee. Yes, it definitely would work with a sphere. Well, so of course I actually didn't grab a sphere. I have a sphere stand, but not a sphere. All of these things would apply, but you can see by getting down low, it does go really cool. Yes, you could also take a picture, detailed up like this, and then replace the background of your photo. You could take the rest of your pictures just on this blank surface in here, and then use this as the background for your photos. However, anybody with experience doing photography will notice that you just use this as a replacement background instead of actually using it as a leading line up to your subject. And then the other thing I wanted to suggest, one of my favorite photos that I've done so far for Highland Park was I used Jordan's apartment for a photo shoot, and I took a piece of labradorite and I went into Lightroom and I made everything but the labradorite black and white. And I don't know if the team has access to that photo, if they know where that photo is, but it makes it so that all you really see is the labradorite, and it just really pops to me, it's a very cool photo. But I really do like these cheap plants because you can use these all around your house as great ways to give some depth to your photo. So you can do stuff like set up your plants Now, again, this is one that I would not really be excited to use the background of this light box for this picture, but like a sphere like this would look good. Just having something else to give it depth in your picture. Yeah, look at that Labradorite. That's a killer piece of Labradorite. This is actually the piece of Labradorite I used when I did those pictures in Jordan's apartment. Oh, is that helpful? Yeah, I mean, I don't know a whole lot else to add there other than just to go out and practice with your camera. I guess I can show you. Actually, I'll show you one more thing. We'll play with my expensive camera for a minute. And then if you guys have any questions, or I know there's some other photographers in here that I'd love to hear their comments. Let me grab this agate right here, a nice island agate. And there is three things now. These are three things that I think most people will never really have to worry about because they're going to be using like a cell phone. But let's talk about I think it's called the exposure triangle. There's a few things that are the most helpful to know.
Zeke, is that a macro lens that you're using?
This is a macro lens on this camera. This is a FE 2.8 90 millimeter macro Sony lens, the GOOSS. Let's see.
Yeah, I told Zeke he needs to do more photos there.
I really do. All right. So you can see the agate in the center. Now there's three things you can adjust if you actually get a decent camera. You can adjust the f-stop, and what that is that's how much the aperture opens inside the lens. So I think Jeffrey, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the smaller the number, the bigger it opens, and the bigger the number, the smaller it opens, which limits the amount of light that you're in there. So you can see just by changing the f-stop, it changes the coloration of that agate. The other adjustment you can make, and these adjustments should all be done together. You should adjust all of these adjustments in unison, is the ISO. And I was trying to figure out a way to explain that. And from watching videos, the best way I can think to explain the ISO is how it adjusts how sensitive your lens is. Yeah, sensitivity to light. Perfect. So the higher the ISO, the brighter your image is going to be. The lower the ISO, the darker it's going to be. And the reason you have to adjust all these things together is if you do not adjust them together, you wind up with a lot of what people call noise in a picture, where it looks fuzzy in spots, or it looks like there's a little pixelation, because the photo is not very clean looking. And so you don't want to just go crazy turning up your ISO and not adjusting the other things. You want to adjust all of these to get that perfect image. Now, the other thing that you can adjust is how long the lens is open, or the shutter's open to take the picture. So you can see the little fraction right there. That is the number that's telling you how long this is open. Now, for doing a still photo, you don't need this open very long because we're not capturing any motion, we're not capturing any change in the light, we're capturing a nice clean photo. So you do not need this open very long because there's no motion blur. Um, so the longer this is open, the more light that's going to get in. The shorter it's open, the less light that's going to get in. But those are the three real functions that you would adjust. And then the only other thing that I adjust when I'm taking pictures is I use the lens there to make sure that it's a really sharp image. There's really incredible detail. And then, of course, we can just gently take a photo. And it's going to snap that photo for us. Now, if you notice on this picture right here, the top of the lens there, this agate is washed out. So if I was really taking this picture right now, what I would do is I would get a little rock giblet and I would tilt that up so that it's more flat to the face of the camera and you get more detail and you lose that glare. But as you can see when it's tilted down, it's got a little bit of glare. So just I would prop something up behind it to lose that little bit of glare and get a sharper image. But that's really it. The from playing with photography, it actually is a lot easier than most people think. I think most people get intimidated because there's so much information on photography and it can seem so overcomplicated that a lot of people don't even know where to start because that's kind of where I was when I bought this camera. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to get. Is this too much stuff? And so I ended up buying the most expensive camera and lens that I could get, and I really don't. I still use my iPhone for most of it. And it is a lot of fun, but I'd say for most people, having a cell phone is far more than you're ever really going to need. Any questions? Anything that I can guide you guys on, help you on? Any pro tips from people in here that are better than this than I am? Practice is definitely the way to go. Just get out and start taking pictures. And when you're doing the photography, do not be afraid of critique and judgment. If you think the picture looks good, ask somebody. Ask somebody else that's non-biased. Because they're gonna have, they're gonna be like, oh, well, I was just kind of blurry. Like I've had people send me pictures that they're like, oh, I'm so excited about this picture. And I go, man, I can't even see half the detail in this because it's so out of focus. But when you look at the stone in real life, uh you can be you can fill in the gaps in the information in your head with you look at the picture and go, oh, well, I know how good that's supposed to look. Um, and so you kind of fill in the gaps. So ask somebody else what they think of your pictures. Doing slabs, I would do the exact same method that I was just doing for this agate here. I would, you can get little stands to prop it up, but there's a flat surface is so easy to do that it's a good thing to practice with because it's hard to mess up a slab because it's easy to get it all in focus because you got one flat surface. The biggest thing I've discovered when doing photography on an agate or a slab where you're doing a flat face is try to get the lens as parallel to that flat face as possible, and that will help you get a sharp image all the way around your edges. When I'm doing pictures, let me see if I have any pictures on my computer here. Maybe I'll screen share again. Oh yeah, let me screen share and I'll show you guys what I look at when I'm looking at the images. Let's see. All right, so you guys can see this picture. Okay. If you notice this area up here, that whole corner right there is actually not in focus. What I'll do is what they call pixel peeping. Ooh. Where I'll come in and I'll get really close on here. You can actually see the still see scratches in this agate from polishing because we're looking at so much detail right now. But see how it's a little blurry and it looks like it's kind of glowing almost because it's not in great focus. I'll come in here and look at the pictures like this and I'll sit here and do this until these are perfect. Um, and you can't see any of that. You see nice sharp image. Because if we come in to the center, or down here even lower, like, oh, right here's a great area to do this with. Look how much better the detail is in these bands. And so you want the whole image to be that crisp. You can also see there's little bits of dust and stuff still on this agate from when I took this picture, so I should have washed the surface better. But that's the level of detail that you want to go into if you're going to take a really nice picture. This one's another great example because if you look up here, a lot more detail than when you get like look how blurry it is right here in comparison to that top edge. This is one of the things that I say it's really important to get as parallel as possible because if you look right here, this looks terrible. And this is showing really great detail. And this is not a horrible image. Like, that's not a bad picture. But if I'm trying to be the absolute best, I want it to all be as clean as it is in that top area. Let's see, here's another one that we'll look at. This is another one that there's actually this whole image is kind of blurry if you start really zooming in on it. Like, you can see some areas are a lot sharper than others, but you get like here is completely fuzzy. So it's one of those things to take into consideration. How fuzzy is it? Let's see. But the other thing to consider is overall, this picture isn't terrible. Like, you look when you look at this picture as a whole, it's not bad. So you don't need to be as fanatical as I am. It just needs to look decent because you got to remember most people are just going to be looking at these pictures on like an iPhone or on their laptop. So you don't need crazy resolution. That is one of the rabbit holes that I went down when I bought that camera. Is I needed the best resolution you can get in the world, and it won't matter to most people because most people are still going to be looking on it on a screen that's most people are going to be looking on it in like 1080 screen. Let's see. I think I got a couple more here. Yeah, here's another one that if you look up in this top um, left area, it's a lot more in focus than the bottom right. Now, this is a interesting image because if I really wanted to make this amazing, and this applies to the sphere, by the way, Eddie, um, this is where you would do exposure stacking. So if you look, there's too much range in the depth of field in this crystal pocket to the outside edges of this agate. So what you would do, and this is far beyond what I can teach you guys. It's not a hard thing to do. It's just beyond what I can teach you. So watch a video on how to do this because this has to be done with software. You can set up your camera to take like 10 images of this agate at different focal lengths and then stack them all together. And the software will use the best, crispest part of every image to complete your image. So you can, if you do an exposure stack, you can have it nice and crisp on the outside all the way down to the center of this pocket. Now, this is another, like what I'd consider a bad picture because I didn't light up this druzy pocket. The whole center of this pocket is all dark and you can't see it at all. I mean, which is okay because the best part of this agate is these eyes on the edges. But I would dock points on this one for not at least lighting up the druzy pocket, which I could have done with another light. This is another one where you could tell I was still really practicing because actually the pattern on the light box here is in better focus than a lot of the agate. So I really need to adjust the focus on this when I'm taking this picture. Does that make sense? Is that helpful for you guys? One of the best things you can do for yourself is be very critical of what you're doing. You know what, Marvin? I have not tried that yet. I would imagine that you're gonna need a like a UV filter to do that, but I really don't have any experience even trying that, so I will have to practice with that. And I'm sure in the future, after I have more photography practice, we can do another uh chat about this. One of the other things for doing domed surfaces, someone asked about spheres and like dome agates. You can also use a polarizing lens to get rid of the reflection on a surface. And so that's something that you can put on your camera to adjust and get rid of that glare. That is not something that I've really practiced with yet. I think out of all these images, though, this one's actually my favorite, even though it's very blurry in this bottom edge. Yeah, a lot of these same concepts aren't really going to change from product to product, it's slight adjustments. Yes, yeah, Robin, that's what I was just mentioning a minute ago. The I called it exposure stacking, but yeah, bracketing, where you're taking a bunch of pictures and using the best exposure from every picture. All right, any questions? Anything else that I can help you guys on? Thank you, Jeffrey. I really appreciate that. That is very kind. And you do have some really good photos. Jordan and I were stalking your Instagram and looking at all your photos. I was really impressed with the race car photos, where you captured the motion blur. The little light in the box there. Let's see. Try not to lose my place with the uh, questions there. This is a aperture light. Um, I can't. These are kind of expensive for what they are. You can get much cheaper versions of these, but that is the Aperture brand. Those are great lights. We've used those for a long time. So, Marvin, for your question of using one half versus both halves, I think as a general rule, one half is better because you can focus on that one half so much easier and make it look so much better in a single image than you can two halves. That I really think it's better to go that route of just using one half. Oh, this is so I took this image and I made in Lightroom, I made it so everything was black and white except for that Labradorite, and that looked so good. I really like that picture a lot. That is not my picture. That is one that Nermeen sent me as a suggestion. Opals is one that I have not tackled yet. I will have to try that and see if I can help you guys with that. The this should get posted up on YouTube, I believe, to help you, Wesley.
Yeah, they're gonna edit it and post it on YouTube.
So the most difficult things to photograph are always going to be things that have like crystal pockets or a wide range of depth, where you got something like, oh, you know what? I'll tell you what. Doing that amethyst picture with Jordan, where I did the Amethyst Cathedral, that was a nightmare to try to get a decent picture of, because getting the color and the focus was so hard because there's a million little crystal faces to focus on that I really struggled to get any kind of a decent photo there. And that's one that you would have to do exposure bracketing on to get any kind of a decent photo. You know, that's actually, I don't mind having the reflection in a sphere. I know that a lot of people spend a lot of time for trying to get no glare, but if you're going to do a sphere, like, to your eye, a sphere is always going to have a reflection because it's a perfectly domed surface. So I don't mind having a little bit of reflection in my sphere photos, because it also helps with showing the depth in your photo that it is a orb. I've seen people go too far and get rid of all the glare, and it makes it look like a disc instead of a sphere. And so I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to have a little bit of glare on a sphere or a domed agate. I think that's okay. A polarizing filter would help a lot get rid of that glare. Chatoyant materials are definitely, you got to get lined up in your lighting just right. Like, you can see that Labradorite. It took me a few minutes of moving around the room and figuring out where I was going to take that picture to get it lined up just perfectly to show how bright that Labradorite was. Oh, so where was it go? All right. That's awesome, Sarah. Thank you, Jeffrey. I really appreciate it. Yes. Yeah, you guys definitely get on Amazon. You can get a cheap light box like this, and like that tripod, not the one that you guys can see now, but the one that the camera's on, was like 15 bucks. And then this light box was probably like 100 bucks or something like that. But you can get smaller ones that are great for, 30, 40, 50 bucks. So you can get a nice little light, a light box, and a tripod for easily under 100 bucks. Oh, I'm so glad this was helpful for you guys. You know what's funny, Marvin? If I'm buying an agate, I actually prefer a just nonchalant somebody grabbing their phone and picking up an agate and taking me a quick little video, um, than than actually a nice photo, because I know I'm going to take a nice photo of it. But I'll tell you, a nice photo will definitely make it sell faster and for more money. But if I'm buying, usually it's like people in the back room of some dusty building, like, oh, here, hold this up and show it. So that's how I'm used to buying. Oh yeah, thrift store, you probably find lots of great tripods. Yeah, and honestly, the setup that I have right here is mostly just stuff that I found around the warehouse that Sherman already had, so I didn't go get stuff. But you can get a nice little, light built in already is very cool. That's a great suggestion, Jeffrey. All right. Any other questions? Anything else you guys want to see?